All right. So, hello everybody. It's Janice, and I'm back with another interview of someone who's has some more information to add to our journey of what does creativity even mean. So today I've brought in Karen Dean, and she is a resilience expert. Is there any other title you like to use, Karen?
I have several, but resilience expert really speaks to the work that I do. But I'm also a speaker and a best-selling author. I am a solo mom. I use the word fierce leader. This license plate is actually my real license plate that says fierce. So I've had a lot of titles over the years, but for my work right now, it's really focused on resilience, and I think now more than ever before, we really need to focus on how to become more resilient.
So I know you faced and overcome some incredible challenges in your life. How do you think the resilience and creativity are connected?
I think they actually go really hand in hand. Um, my some of my hardest times in my life have also been my most creative. The best-selling book that I published, I went from idea to published book in 41 days while my son was getting chemotherapy during the height of the COVID pandemic. So for me, I find that I get really creative when things are really hard because I think it really helps me focus. And I find creativity can sometimes be a distraction and make us think about the good things that we're passionate about and the things that bring us joy. So, writing, speaking, and I find even journaling helps you get through the hard things and becomes a channel for healing as opposed to making things more complicated. I think it gives us an outlet to really focus on the good instead of the hard thing that's happening.
So you mentioned about creativity and how that helps with healing and rebuilding after setbacks. So what have you had to utilize with your creativity to help with setbacks or healing?
I have really worked hard on my inner strength to get through these things, which is really what resilience is all about. But setting boundaries has been a huge thing for me around my energy, around the people that I surround myself with. Um, it's been a lot of daily gratitude, thinking about the good things that are around me, even noticing, I think we really overthink the gratitude thing a lot of times, but noticing a bird chirping, noticing beautiful flowers. There's so much beauty in nature. And I think, especially for people who live in more urban areas, we tend to forget to stop and look around sometimes. And that can really bring us a lot of help and healing and reset our mind to the good instead of the bad. And the biggest thing I think for so many of us, and I can't speak for men, but I can definitely speak for women, that we have this really critical inner voice that we tend to blame ourselves, we beat ourselves up. And I've really had to start a practice of positive affirmations, like saying positive things to myself in a mirror. It started with a life coach that I had many years ago who asked me to take this postcard home. And she said, I want you to say these words to yourself every single day in the mirror. And I couldn't do it for 2 years. And I coach about this all the time now with my clients. But the words that she wanted me to say were, I deeply and completely love myself. And there are a lot of people who can't do that
Hmm.
and not not only not do it, but not mean it if they are able to do it. So, like I said, it took me 2 years to be able to say that and feel like I meant it. And I think we really, really, really need to work on our inner voice because that is the thing that brings us down more than anything else. And we need to think about where that inner voice came from,
Hmm.
because it's mostly not our voice. It's somebody else's voice that we keep hearing in our head. So it was a negative adult from our childhood, or, an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend who said you were this, this, this. And those voices keep resonating in our heads. And I think we really have to stop and look and say, where is that coming from and whose voice is that? So that we can turn it into our own voice to be something positive.
Yeah, that's a big one. I've had
For
so
sure.
many clients that have had trouble with that, and I keep going. There's always the inner critic. So we work on, and I remember doing a workshop on your inner champion. So that's that
Mm,
inner part of you that likes to clap. And it
yes,
reminded me of the angel and the devil that sits on your shoulders.
for sure.
Right? So the inner champion is the angel, if you want to call it
Mm,
that. The critic is the devil, and it will sidetrack you and do everything else. And the other one's going, but you're doing so well. Why would you stop now? And it's like,
yeah.
because you're not good enough. And yeah, all that kind of stuff. I um, like too much cartoons sometimes.
Well, I remember all those from my childhood, but the thing I like to remind people is that being authentic is really your superpower, and nobody else has your experiences. Nobody else can share your story or show your talent
Mhm.
exactly like you do. So that's what I like to remind people is, yeah, there's so many other people who might have done this or that or the other thing, but they're not you and they don't have your experiences and your voice. So scream it louder and celebrate it.
And I know we were talking earlier about how um, the word imposter syndrome is way out there. I know I've been doing a lot of research and been totally surprised about the amount of burnout. And
Mm.
my big thing was, do you know that the World Health Organization doesn't have an effective means of dealing with burnout for people? And I went, that's when I got my aha. I went, I've been doing this for over 30 years.
Yeah.
I know what to do. And then trying to get the word out. So I don't know how you found it when you're getting roadblocks both professionally and personally. Did you find you had any strategies that helped you when you're feeling self doubt about what you're trying to do and how to show up for yourself and your audience still when you're bombarded with that?
I think, and this is very counterintuitive, but sometimes we have to step back and get quiet. And that is when the light bulbs, so to speak, start going off and the best ideas come to us. And I've made it a practice that I have a beautiful soaker tub in my bathroom, and I make sure that I go and spend quiet time in there at least 2 or 3 times a week. And I'm a single mom. It was really hard to get into that practice. But as my kids got older, I said, look, this is my time and I need this. And unless you're dying, I don't want to even hear you breathing. Like there's no fighting when I'm in the tub. There's no, mom, I need this while I'm in the tub. This is my time. And I think as parents, we don't allow ourselves that very often because we think someone needs us all the time. But those people also need us to look after ourselves. So that's one of the simple things that I do. Sometimes it might be going for a drive. Sometimes, whatever works for somebody, if it's, cranking the music up and dancing in the kitchen. But sometimes we just need to stop thinking about whatever it is that's holding us back and just release. And then that's when the most creative ideas come to me is after I've taken the time to step back, to quiet my mind for a little bit. And then, I mean, that's how that book came to be. We Are Unbreakable, the book that I published in 2020. I was laying in bed one morning and it was quiet, and this idea just popped in my head. Um, and I think that's when our best ideas come to us is when we really get quiet. And it's uncomfortable for a lot of people because we are not used to being quiet. We're used to the go, go, go hustle mentality. And I think that's one of the biggest problems we have in our society right now is that we've been programmed to hustle. And we really need to remember hustle isn't going to win at the end of the day. We need to rest, and it's okay to rest.
I'm always telling my clients that if you don't take care of yourself, who's going to?
Yeah.
Because you've got to do your own personal self care, and that's something your kids need to be taught, other adults need to be taught. Because I grew up with a mother who was the ever ready battery bunny,
Mm-hmm.
but she would then take 20 minutes, lay her head down on the kitchen table, and recharge. And
Right.
we weren't allowed to disturb her during that 20 minutes. And she also always got in the tub. And we weren't allowed to, when we were younger, to disturb her in the tub. But when we were older, if you really need to go to the bathroom, you were allowed to come in.
Right.
We grew up with one bathroom and six people.
Yes, I
So,
grew up in a house with one bathroom as well, and I built my own house 12 years ago now, and I made sure there was more than one bathroom.
yes, yeah, definitely need that. Oh, you talked about the fact that resilience comes and you start to find it after you've had some adversity and you find that inner strength in yourself. Um, a lot of creatives are going through major life shifts. It could be a career change, personal losses, creative block. I had that in COVID. First time in my life, I went, I have no ideas. That's not my norm.
Hmm.
And then figured out what to do for, and got out of it in 2 weeks, which everybody's like, how did you do that? And I'm like, well, I'm a stress management person too. So
Exactly.
there you
It's
go.
what I do.
Yeah. So, is there any advice you could give them for navigating uncertainty while they're trying to stay true to their passion?
I have one reminder that is really powerful, I find. You have overcome 100% of your bad days so far. And I think when we remind ourselves of that, it really puts things into perspective. I have the capacity to do this again. I've done it before. I've been through hard things. I've come out the other side even better than I was when I started. And that is the thing that we need to keep reminding ourselves of is, you know what? I've been through hard things. It's the analogy of when you have a toddler who's learning how to walk and they take 2 steps and fall down, do they just give up? No. They're like, no, I'm going to keep trying until I get this right. So I think it's about reminding ourselves that, we can do this. That's really what resilience is all about. We can do this. We can come out the other side of this a better person than we already are. Surround yourself with people who uplift you and inspire you instead of the people who bring you down. Like pay attention to how you feel when you're with people and then decide accordingly how much time you should spend with them and just try to stay connected to that passion that you have about whatever your creative art is. Even if it's little tiny things that can just keep you connected to it, um, that can really help you get through the dark times.
Yeah, that support and uplift, I find that really, really important because there's so much out there to shoot you down. I laughed. My sister sent me something today that one Starbucks store is now doing support for starving artists. I'm like, would you quit putting those two terms together? Artists
Yes.
do not have to be starving. That is an old idea. It's not true. They can be as successful as anybody else. I actually heard of one painter who I'm aspiring to because I have big ideas what to do. His paintings sell for 125,000 euros. And
Wow.
when he has an art show, they're already all sold before the art show opens.
Yeah.
And my
It
big
really
thing has
speaks to
been,
mindset, doesn't
yeah,
it? To the
yeah,
mindset. If you think you are a starving artist, you will be a starving artist. If you think you can be a successful, wealthy, abundant artist,
hmm,
and whatever that looks like, wealthy to some people is, $50,000. Wealthy to other people is $1 million. It's all about your perspective. But it's really so much comes back to our mindset and to those we talked about earlier, limiting beliefs that we have and where those came from. I grew up in a home where I was taught money was a bad thing, or the people that had money were bad people, or oh my gosh, look at those people up the road. They got a new truck, or whatever. It was always judging the people who had more than us. And I have made it a point in raising my kids and in changing my own mindset to be no, like cheer those people on. Good for them that they are able to do these things. I want to be like them. And I have friends now. I have one friend who often speaks about, oh, so and so is going on vacation again. And I'm like, good for them. I want to be them. Like,
hmm,
I want to get to the point where I can go on vacation 3 times in 3 months. Um, so I think that's really how we learn to be successful is by watching the people who already are and learning from them.
yeah. One of the people I'm working with right now said, if you want to make a sale of $1,000 in a month, you have to hang out with people that are already earning more than $1,000 a month.
For sure.
And she said, when you adjust that, and then you have all this ability to use your money for all kinds of stuff. Mine is about saving the ocean. And
Mhm.
that that changed my mindset because I grew up with that whole thing about, yeah, you don't want to be greedy, you don't want to have too much, because other people will be jealous of you and then they'll make your life miserable. And the people with money always lord over everybody else. And I'm like, that's not how it has to be.
You know.
That's the way some people are. Yeah.
Mhm. And I do find with a lot of creative people, they have that money mindset block. And I actually talked to someone who is a very successful author and has been for, 40 years. And, I aspire to be as successful as she is. But she always talks negatively about money. And I was said to her one day, I'm like, you know what? The more money you make, the more ability you have to help others.
Yes.
And that resonated with her because it isn't always about spending it on ourselves. But,
Mhm.
I did a fundraiser in the early days of the pandemic. I had a clothing company at the time. And after the horrible mass shooting we had here in Nova Scotia, I designed a Nova Scotia Strong clothing, like hoodies and t-shirts. And I was able to donate $96,000 to the Red Cross Fund for the victims in 3 months. And that was more money than my company had ever made before. And I was just so happy to be able to do that.
Mhm.
So I think we really have to look at, how we look at money and the ability it has to not only make our own lives easier, but it helps us be able to give back to whatever it is we care about the most. And, that's really what I'm all about is, yeah, I want to be able to do things and pay my bills, but I also want to be able to help others.
So that's all about the making an impact. And what I find with some of my customers, they're not ready yet to take the action. And I know I'm an action taker. I come up with an idea, I act on it. And that's just the way I'm programmed.
Mhm.
Um, is there any way you have um, experienced using your platform with helping others? Because many of the artists and creatives that I've talked with are trying to make a difference, but they don't know where to start. And they're trying to find their own unique voice within the gamut of everything. And they have talents and they want to share all of that. and then trying to figure out what their cause should be or what it could be. Do you have any feedback on that?
Sure. I think turning your experiences into impact can start really small. It doesn't have to be huge, like $96,000 fundraiser, which blew my mind at the time. But the best advice I have is to show up authentically and to use your voice in ways that genuinely resonate with you, and you will find your people or your cause. So sharing your stories, your insights, even your struggles, because being vulnerable and real is what really connects us to the people that we want to be connected to. And perfection is not how we do that. It's by being vulnerable and real. So think about, just what is one small step I can take today that aligns with my values?
Mhm.
And then think about that. So it might be a social media post, it might be volunteering with an organization, it might just be sharing some kind words and encouragement with someone. All of those things make a difference. And when you start to kind of see little things happening, it's easier to then understand how you make the big things happen. So, like I said earlier, your experience and your perspective, that's your superpower. So even the smallest actions can, ripple out into making meaningful change. Um, what is it? A rising tide lifts all ships. So,
Yes, yeah, unless they fall
yeah,
to the
so
bottom.
it's about,
Yep.
those little tiny things that then turn into big things as you go.
Hmm. And I like what you've said there about your experience as your superpower. Because a lot of people um, have had so much negative feedback that they don't even realize how much they've experienced, overcome. I got it the day I watched a baby's first 2 years. It was a video,
Mhm.
like a documentary. We do more in our first 2 years of life than we ever accomplish in the rest of our lives. And it doesn't
True
matter
story.
what else you do, because we've had to try, fail, overcome, try, fail, overcome. So this is where I go, why are we setting up kids so that they don't understand that failure's part of life? Because they
Right.
don't develop their resilience then, and they don't
Yeah.
have any, but they had it when they were really little, and then it
Hmm.
was stolen from them. So
Yeah.
I'm just like, quit doing that, quit doing that. You're not doing anything, not helping them out at all.
No, I have a story actually that relates to that. I'll try to be quick, but my son, I have three children, so my son is my middle child. And when he was 8 weeks old, I was told by a team of neurologists after spending 4 days in the children's hospital with him, where he almost died, that he had been born with a permanent brain injury. It's called periventricular leukomalacia. And they told me to prepare to have a completely dependent child. He's probably going to be in a wheelchair, nonverbal, possibly tube fed. And they sent us home. So again, he's 8 weeks old. He's an infant. All they do at that stage is eat, sleep, poop, and cry anyway.
Mhm.
So I went home. I cried for a whole weekend. My now ex-husband was not supportive at all. And I did some research. Of course, this was back in 2001 when the internet isn't what it is today. And I found all this horrible stuff. And I just looked at him one morning, and his little sister or his older sister was 3 at the time. And I said, that's not going to be my kid.
Mhm.
And I went and found him every bit of help that I could find, every doctor, every specialist, every, physiotherapy. We did it all. And to this day, his brain still looks all messed up. But I like to say he is as normal as men get. He's 24 now,
Mhm.
um, because he was actually able to reprogram his brain.
Mhm.
And one of his first phrases that he could say was, I can't, when I was pushing him to be able to walk or, and he was delayed in every bit of his development. And I used to say, there's no such thing as I can't. There's only I don't want to. And I drilled that into his head so many times as a preschooler. And he started school. He walked on the bus just like everybody else. Didn't have any adaptations in school. And he breezed through school. He kept like a 70 average through high school without even studying or doing any work. So he did really well. And then in June, the end of June of 2020, during the COVID pandemic, he was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh,
And he went into cancer with the same attitude of there's no such thing as I can't, and I've been through crap before and I can do this. He had the easiest cancer journey I have ever heard tell of.
hmm.
Um, like he's probably the only person on the planet that thinks cancer is a minor inconvenience. So he was 19 at the time. He had 6 rounds of chemotherapy and he vomited 3 times, were the only side effects he had, the only illness he had besides being tired and losing his hair. He had 25 rounds of radiation, which should burn your skin like the worst sunburn you can imagine. His skin didn't even turn red, nothing.
Hmm.
So I use him as an example all the time of how powerful our mind is and
Yes.
how by the stories we tell ourselves can truly change our lives. Because he's now 24. He just before his 23rd birthday bought his own home on his own. He works a full-time job. He's, like I said, a normal, functioning adult who can do all the things the rest of us can do. And the neurologists and radiologists who see his brain scans still cannot believe that he's able to do all these things.
Well, as a past physiotherapist, I know the brain is completely plastic. You can reprogram it for all kinds of stuff, and other parts that are damaged can learn to take over, and that's the way it is. So,
Yeah.
nothing in our body is fixed. We actually have a brand new body about every 7 years. So, everything has been redone. And I remember when I heard that, went, we have all this potential to change all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
We don't have to stay with stuff that's sick or dead or whatever, because our immune system is awesome. And when it works with the brain and the gut, wow, possibilities beyond.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I love your story. Say hi to your son. I look
I
forward to
will.
meeting him at some time to, um, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is great.
He doesn't like the spotlight very much, so he kind of stays behind the scenes, but I will definitely
Yeah,
say hello to him.
yeah. No, that's great. So I'm gonna um, thank you for attending, Karen. I
Thank
will
you.
get you to send me your contact information. I put it with the interview. I'll let you know when the interview is ready to go up on my YouTube channel. So you'll have that link, and then if anybody wants to reach out to you, they can.